Hi, folks. Roland Martin here. Glad to be with you. Roland Martin Unfiltered, broadcasting live from New York City, coming up on our Friday, December 7th, 2018 edition. The self-professed neo-Nazi found guilty of first-degree murder in the Charlottesville rally car ramming that killed one, wounded dozens. We'll talk about that. Also, Kevin Hart, he is out as host of the Oscars as a result of what has been described as homophobic tweets and jokes made several years ago. We'll talk about the question, did he handle the situation right? And is it fair to scrutinize somebody for comments that they made several years ago and that he said he has already apologized for? Cleo Monago will join us on the show. Republican assault on democracy goes on. Today we focus on Michigan, and we will hear from the head of the Detroit NAACP. You don't want to miss Reverend Dr. Wendell Gregory on the GOP's attempt to hobble the new Democratic governor and Attorney General plus Secretary of State in that state. They also, of course, want to roll back the issue of early voting. Folks, Donald Trump nominates a new United States Attorney General, but he is not new. Previously serving under the same role under President Bush. How will he affect African Americans? And a student in Rhode Island starts a class action lawsuit to get civics classes back in the classroom. She wants to know how to vote, how to serve on a jury, and how to engage with politics. We'll talk to her and her lawyer. Also, we told you about Tyler Perry's layaway gift yesterday. Now we know how much he spent. Trust me, it's a big number. And the Grammy Awards were announced today. We've got the top nominees. And twice Oscar-nominated costume designer Ruth Carter talks about Black Panther. The other movies she's involved in, of course, Black Panther, nominated for Best Picture Golden Globe. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
All right, folks, breaking news. James Alex Fields Jr. of Ohio was convicted of first-degree murder for killing a woman at the white supremacist Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, on August of 2017. You might recall 32-year-old Heather Heyer was killed and 35 others were injured, many seriously injured. The jury found that Fields, a self-described neo-Nazi, acted with premeditation when he backed his Dodge Challenger down a narrow downtown street, which was crowded with counter-protesters. Again, he has been found guilty as we speak right now. There are folks who are assembling outside of the courtroom there protesting exactly him, even though he has been found not guilty. And so I'm pulling up right now a feed as I'm looking at it right now on ABC News and other feeds as well, as folks are demonstrating outside of the courtroom and chanting happy about him being found guilty. And so again, we are watching that right now. So if our folks let me know, we pull up some other feeds on Twitter, we actually will have an opportunity to see that. But again, he has been found. So again, this breaking news coming down literally in the last hour. A jury has found that the white supremacist who killed Heather Heyer has been found guilty of killing her. She's 32 years old, and remember, he struck her and 32 others. And jury said that Fields, from Ohio, a self-described Nazi, he is found guilty. James Alex Fields. You also got to remember, of course, that it took the work of others to find many of these individuals because the cops there allowed them to disperse. So James Alex Fields Jr. of Ohio, convicted of first-degree murder for killing Heather Heyer in that attack that took place in Charlottesville, Virginia on last year. All right, now to our other top story. Folks, Kevin Hart, he is out as the host of the Oscars. It was just a couple of days ago that he announced that he was going to fulfill a lifelong dream, and that is host the Oscars. Well, what then happened on Wednesday night, then folks began to look at tweets that he sent out in 2009 and through 2011 with homophobic language. Folks also talked about, a joke that he made in his initial stand-up comedy where he talked about his son and if his son was gay and playing with dolls. And so as a result, that took place on Wednesday. Now, Kevin Hart is in Australia. I know for a fact that folks on his team reached out to him late Wednesday night to apprise them of what was going on in terms of what was happening on social media. The following morning, Thursday morning, that's when things really began to blow up. The story began to circulate all across the country, and that's when the Motion Picture Academy then reached out to Hart, asking him to apologize again, or if he didn't, to step down. This is how Kevin Hart responded on Instagram.
From the Academy, and that call basically said, Kevin, apologize for your tweets of old, or we're going to have to move on and find another host. Talking about the tweets from 2009, 2010. I chose to pass. I passed on the apology. The reason why I passed is because I've addressed this several times. This is not the first time this has come up. I've addressed it. I've spoken on it. I've said where the rights and wrongs were. I've said who I am now versus who I was then. I've done it. I've done it. I'm not going to continue to go back and tap into the days of old when I moved on and I'm in a completely different space in my life. The same energy that went into finding those old tweets could be the same energy put into finding the response to the questions that have been asked years after years after years. We feed in the internet trolls and we reward them. I'm not going to do it, man. I'm going to be me. I'm going to stay in my ground. Regardless, Academy, I'm thankful and appreciative of the opportunity. If it goes away, no harm, no foul.
Now, first off, that was the second video Kevin Hart released. The first video he released as he was lying in bed, shirt was off, and he released a video. And then that was the second release. Well, that video was not received well. Later, he posted these two tweets on Twitter. Quote, I've made the choice to step down from hosting this year's Oscars. This is because I do not want to be a distraction on a night that should be celebrated by so many amazing, talented artists. I sincerely apologize to the LGBTQ community for my insensitive words from my past. I'm sorry that I hurt people. I'm evolving and want to continue to do so. My goal is to bring people together, not tear us apart. Much love and appreciation to the Academy. I hope we can meet again. Now this thing began to spread like wildfire all across social media. And Kevin and his team were trying to figure out how they would respond to this. Many people, of course, began to criticize him, attack him, for those tweets, as well as for the jokes he made in his stand-up about his son, if he caught his son playing with dolls. Also, there was an interview Kevin Hart did in 2015 on The Breakfast Club where he said that he would not take a movie role playing someone was gay because he was concerned about how folks would then think about that. And he said he couldn't focus on the role because he would be so concerned about what other people are thinking. In several other interviews, he talked about apologizing for what took place, saying, you know what, I was wrong with my insecurities in terms of that led me to do that. Others said, well, that wasn't an apology. They said he was trying to simply explain it away. Well, joining us right now, Dr. Cleo Monago, of course, who joins us right now, behavioral expert, also Lauren Victoria Burke, writer with the National Newspaper Publishers Association, and joining us, Malik Abdul, Republican communications consultant. Cleo, I want to start with you. You, of course, lead Black Men's Exchange, a group that speaks, of course, to brothers who are same-gender loving. And here's a piece. I sent you a text. I believe it was that same night on Wednesday, and asking you had you heard about this here. And obviously, this thing really began to blow up Thursday. Kevin Hart steps down. Earlier today, I saw a story where the president of GLAAD came out and said that they didn't want Kevin to step down, that this could have been used as a teaching moment. There were others who would say that there could be potentially roles of individuals who are nominated playing gay characters, and that it would be wrong for Kevin Hart to be the host. Your initial thoughts on all of this?
Well, for one of the rare moments, I agree with the guy at GLAAD that as opposed to dismissing Kevin and throwing... Actually,
it was a woman. I think
okay.
The new CEO is a woman. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, thank you. I didn't know that. But anyway, my point is that I agree that in this society, particularly in the Black community, which is whose Kevin's comments are reminiscent of, elements of the Black community who have, in my opinion, man issues, concerns about being seen as gay or not seen as a man, and has to do what Kevin believes he has to do, is constantly talk about fags, if you will, and constantly talking about homosexuality. He's obsessed with the issue, apparently, because he's talking about it over and over again, and there's reasons for that. People want to be seen as a man and want to make public notice that I'm not like that, so I can be seen as a man. But anyway, getting back to the issue that you mentioned, I believe that we always, when we dismiss people, we dismiss an opportunity to create a teaching moment. But the teaching moment, I think, when it comes to Black people, needs to be very specific. Like I said before, sometimes what we call so-called homophobia among Black people is really Black masculinity anxiety, because the society has done some damage to Black men, including more recently with the police murders, but we can go back, further back we go, we see torturous behavior toward Black men. So there's often hyper-masculinity, hyper-investment in being seen as a man, as I said before. So when you create those educational moments, for Black people in particular, we have to deconstruct why we have these reactions and why there's such an obsession with disassociating from homosexuality, even when it's not the topic. So
here's the question, Cleo, that here was Kevin Hart, sent a tweet out also included in his stand-up act. And you have people who are saying Kevin Hart was wrong. He should not be making gay jokes. So the question is this. When you look at comedians, they make jokes about Black people. Mm-hmm. They make jokes about women. They make jokes about gay people. They make jokes about politicians, political parties. So the question is, can comedians make gay jokes? Or are we now saying comedians, where typically, again, where it was always on the comedy stage, anything goes, that, oh no, you should not say anything about anybody that might be deemed offensive. Your thoughts?
Well, Black men can't. I mean, you might remember Tracy Morgan back in the day.
Well, no, I'm not asking can't. I'm asking you, I know what you're saying when they say they can't, but I'm saying, should we have restraints on comedians on who they can make fun of?
And what I'm saying, if I understand your question, is that you're using the term we and you're universalizing the question of what comedians can do. And I'm saying that Black men are treated special. Is my point. That Black men are seen in a society as particularly menacing, particularly macho, particularly hypermasculine, and there's a lot of defensiveness in terms of what black men do. And when a black male comedian says something about homosexuality, like Tracy Morgan did, and more recently Kevin Hart, a bigger issue is made about it. Because what's interesting about Kevin Hart is that he's made films. He's a successful film star who made these comments and has made several films since then, but no one brought it to anyone's attention to actually not let him do films. But now this is the Oscars.
In fact, Leo, Kevin Hart said, wait a minute, I addressed this years ago. I'd already addressed this. I already talked about it. And he echoed exactly what you said. He was sort of like, why is this, coming up now? Other people have been saying the exact same thing. And again, the same thing happened, I believe, with Nate Parker, where Nate said, wait a minute, I've made all these movies. And so you're telling me, he says, why is it all of a sudden coming up now? Obviously, the Oscars is totally different. There's this huge international stage, and all of a sudden, it's a brighter spotlight.
Well, that you mentioned Nate Parker is relevant to this issue with Kevin Hart, because initially, both of them were defensive. Initially, both of them were like, look, I already said something, I've already made amends, and the gay community, which is a white-ran community and takes advantage of its opportunity to attack black men, don't play that. They want you to grovel immediately. And to immediately apologize, no matter how many times you've done it before, this is the Oscars, you got to apologize again. And apparently Kevin didn't understand that, just like Nate didn't back in the day, and he apologized later and talked about that he's hurt people and he's apologized, etc. But that was not his initial response. So
Victoria Burke.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what Cleo says is absolutely right. I mean, African Americans are not given the same level of latitude in these situations as everybody else. So it's a combination of course, the big stage of the Oscars, which is a bigger stage than most, and it's the fact that he's an African American, and it's the fact that it's a constituency that he's criticized that has a great deal of political power. Also the fact, too, that his apologies in the past have not been as fully throated as some that we've seen from other people in other instances. So, yes, he's right. He's correct when he says he did apologize before, but you really have to get out there and understand what the political atmosphere is that you're living in and what the group that is involved in politically is to do this effectively. So even though he's accurate that he has addressed this before, you have to be very emphatic in addressing it when you're dealing with a group that has this level of political power, which they do. So dealing with that reality, it is painful to see it in terms of, yes, we're fans of Kevin Hart, we want to see him do well, we want to see him do the Oscars. It was a dream of his. But at the same time, until he gets out there in a really, really emphatic way and does it, not necessarily to the exact liking of the people who have been critical of them, because frankly, I think there are people out there who will never let it go, no matter what, in every constituency. Also, I actually think, too, whether it's African Americans, gays, or anybody else, this whole teachable moment thing, I think, is slightly ridiculous. You don't leave it to the person saying the thing to teach you anything. If we did that as African Americans, we would never be doing anything. We don't leave it to the people who criticize us, who've been racist against us, to teach us anything. I don't allow, and nobody allows anyone saying anything critical or racist to define who we are as individuals. It's ridiculous. So I did catch the president of GLAAD this morning. I think she was on MSNBC. And I thought, why do you need Kevin Hart to give you a teachable moment? You either know who you are as a person and you respect who you are as a person, and that's it. You don't need Kevin Hart to define that for you one way or the other, whether he's hosting the Oscars or not. So I thought that whole ask was sort of ridiculous. But the Kevin Hart that we saw on the video and the Kevin Hart that we saw on the tweet are two different Kevin Harts. The one on the video is the real person saying, I'm sick of this, I'm tired of it. And that is the real person who understands that, I've said something apologetic and I don't want to repeat it again and again. The other Kevin Hart in the tweet is the guy that took control and said, okay, I'm tired of this, I'm going to withdraw. He really actually took control of the situation and withdrew before they sort of got rid of him, which is really sort of a power move in a way.
Well, here's what he said. He said, Malik, that their deal was either you apologize or you're not going to be the host. He said, I'm not going to apologize. And then he said, it's up to you. He then, of course, so remember, if you play the video back, he essentially says that they gave him the option. He says, I'm not going to apologize, and then y'all do what y'all going to do. Then, of course, he later draws and then still issues an apology. Remember, in 2012, Brett Ratner was supposed to be the director of the producer, the director of the Oscar telecast. He made a gay slur at some industry event. Eddie Murphy was very close to Brett Ratner. Eddie Murphy was supposed to host that year. They forced Brett Ratner out. Eddie Murphy resigned and stepped down and said, I'm not going to be host. He was in a sense standing in solidarity with Brett Ratner. So Malik, I'll ask you your thoughts about all of this, but I'll ask you as well. The question is this. Comedians say all sorts of things. Comedians say things about, again, everybody. If you watch Lisa Lampanelli, she talked about black people, white people, gay people, everybody. The late Don Rickles was known to be Mr. Un-PC.
Joan Rivers, too.
Say it again?
Joan Rivers as well.
Yeah, Joan Rivers, of course. Look, if you go back, and if you want to talk about, again, Malik, I'm going to pull you in. You want to talk about that standard. The question is, if Bernie Mac was alive, and when he did his King's Comedy routine, where he talked about one of his nieces or one of his nephew, one of his being gay, the question is, would Bernie Mac be criticized and made to apologize? So Malik, just your thoughts on what people are saying that comedians should or should not and can and cannot say.
Well, this is the first time I actually heard the comments by Kevin were today. I didn't know about what happened in 2011 and 2009. So when I see the video of him on Instagram saying that I've apologized enough, I say to myself, okay, well, I never heard it, so I don't know. I didn't hear that apology. As to your question about whether or not other comedians would be able to, whether Bernie Mac or others would, Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy, of old, would be able to have the same comedic set as they had back then, I would say no. And the reason is because of the type of climate that we're in, the political climate that we're in. I said last week with Mark Lamont Hill, I said I was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt that what he said was not what he intended or how it came across to people. That's not where we are in our politics. Of course, as a Republican, I have to say, there are things that we have done, and a lot of it has become so political and it's toxic. So when a Republican says something, I think we should be willing to give them the benefit of the doubt and have those same teaching moments that Lauren mentioned, but we don't do enough of that. So now we have a climate that if Kevin Hart says something like this, we have to go after him. If Mark Lamont...
But here's the thing, though. Okay, I want to put a pin right there. You said... if a Republican said this, are we now saying that the standard for a comedian is the same as the standard for a politician?
Well, unfortunately, I think this is where we are. And when I say I think this is where we are, what I'm referring to is the online mafia mob or whatever you want to call it. A lot of these stories get pushed because someone tweeted it. So people report on what someone else tweeted, not the actual situation. So the reason that we're talking about this is because someone dug it up and said, okay, well, now this is an issue. But we do so much of that, and I think we do ourselves a disservice because we cover stories based on what's happening on social media. I don't know if a reporter actually went to Kevin and had this conversation with Kevin, or there was some real investigative journalism anything.
No, here's what happened. Here's what happened. I'm going to tell you what happened. Kevin Hart announced on Tuesday that he was going to be the Oscar host. On Wednesday, tweets began to go out talking about this is what Kevin Hart tweeted in 2009, 2010. This is the joke that he made about his son, if his son was gay, in a stand-up act in 2010. The Guardian then writes a story. IndieWire writes a story, and then it's circulating. And it literally was, this thing was moving around 11 p.m. or midnight on Wednesday. Then, by around 8 or 9 o'clock on Thursday morning, it began to get picked up by Variety, by the Hollywood Reporter, by the Wrap, all the industry trade magazines, and then the story began to go to the next level. So that was a timeline. But I do want to ask the three of you, and the reason I'm asking you this, because I remember when Tracy Morgan made his joke during his routine, and I wrote a column on CNN.com talking about comedians and what they say and the leeway that we give comedians on stage. And I talked about people were saying that Tracy Morgan shouldn't be joking about killing a gay son, and then I talked about. So I wrote this column saying, what about all these other comedians who've joked about killing kids? And folks said, no, it's totally different. And folks begin to attack me saying, how dare you write that, when what I was asking is, okay, the comedy stage used to be that place where anything goes. Nothing was off limits. So the question is, have we come to the point where the comedic stage, we're saying now that, oh, there are limits, and what do y'all think about that when it comes to the freedom of what comedians have always said and done? And are we also now going to judge comedians based upon a comedy routine from 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, 15 years ago?
Well, Roland,
anybody can jump.
We used to have Al Jolson and the Minstrel Show in the United States, right? That was perfectly acceptable. And so we have to understand as African Americans the obvious. We are in a different cultural space because of 400 years of history. I mean, we are not judged the same. And that's why, and Cleo, you can come in, right? I know you're going to say something on top of this that's going to layer this out correctly. That is why Kevin Hart can't just get away with this. Same reason why Mark Lamont Hill can't say what he. I mean, we are in a different cultural space. We are an ethnic minority, and so when we say stuff, we're judged by the majority. So, you know, it's as obvious as that. Of course, there have been things that have happened on the comedic stage, a lot of them directed against African Americans that everybody thought was hilarious, particularly in the early part of the 1900s. Yep. And no one said that, you know, for Hollywood to be doing this is particularly, you know, it's particularly laughable. Okay, when we look at the films that came out between, you know, the dawn of film and about, 1960s and 70s with the blaxploitation era, everybody thought that was great. Yeah. So, you know, I take all of that. I'm not saying it's okay to say negative, bigoted things against any group. I don't care who it is. But we are judged differently. Sorry, Cleo, I went a little long there.
Okay, Cleo, then Malik, then I'm going to the next story. Well,
she's correct. And I said that earlier, that we are judged differently, and which was my point in the first place. But I want to reiterate something that inspired by some of your comments, Roland, when you mentioned Lisa Lampanelli, and I mentioned Joan Rivers, and other people were mentioned. Back when Tracy Morgan was accused of what he didn't say, he didn't say he would kill his son if he was gay. And we don't have time to get into what really happened. It was the topic was bullying. And back at that time, bullying was the thing in the media, and he talked about if his son better not let himself get bullied. And that was the issue about my son better not come home, make himself look bad and being a victim and being bullied, and it was interpreted as something about gay. He didn't even use the word gay, Tracy, but he was targeted. And that's my point. I believe that that Kevin is being targeted. Lisa Lampanelli, who was alive and still alive back then during Tracy's time, Joan Rivers, these people say all kinds of horrendous racist and so-called homophobic things, but Tracy was the one who got attacked. So I want to reiterate the fact that there is special treatment here. I also want to make it real clear, though, that if you take those comments that Kevin Hart said literally, they're problematic. They're violent, they're rude, they're dismissive, they're oppressive. But he's a comedian, like Lisa Lampanelli, like the late Joan Rivers, and these other people that say horrible things about people all the time. So if we remove the context and replace it with racism, then again, what Lauren is saying becomes more relevant and more focused here in terms of why this man is in trouble now. And what I hope he doesn't do, I can say this real quickly, is go out and run behind the HRC's new executive director and do a Please Love Me and I Love You campaign. That's going to be real optically problematic for a brother to go around doing that. So what you're saying, if Kevin Hart goes up there, he should be aligning with black folks who are saying gender loving. No, I didn't say that. I'm just asking. Well, okay. I think that black people need to have a conversation about this issue. Black folks has never had a rational conversation about sexual diversity and sexuality and same-gender loving people as a focus with an intention to actually engage it and learn some things about it. So part of what's going on So that's what I'm saying. I mean, I don't care who Kevin hangs with. He don't got to hang out with me. You know, I don't need him to do that. But I do need people to be responsible.
All right, folks, let's go to our next story. Let's talk about what's happening in Michigan, where the Republican-controlled legislature has passed laws that ties the hands of the incoming Democratic governor, Secretary of State, and Attorney General. Not only that, they are seeking to overturn proposals passed by voters that would allow persons to register to vote up until the day of the election. And they passed 2 bills that would water down another voter initiative. This one would hike the minimum wage and require employers to provide sick pay. Let me get this straight. So the voters elected Democrats statewide, now Republicans, they want to change it all. Joining us right now is Wendell Anthony. He is the head of the Detroit NAACP. Reverend Anthony, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, Roland. Thank you for getting my name right. This is Reverend Wendell Anthony, as you said. Basically, my brother.
Of course I got your name right, okay? Because you the one sent me a text with your statement earlier about what's happening. So don't let me start talking about you wearing your gator. See, why you gonna go ahead and go there? All right. So, but here's what I'm trying to understand. What the hell is the point of voters passing an initiative if the legislature is going to say we don't have to follow it?
Well, that's precisely what we're concerned about, Roland. This is the highest level of hypocrisy and deceit and treachery. It basically grows out of the fact that somebody didn't get the memo that the Democrats won the election in the state of Michigan, that they are trying to set themselves up to maintain their bases of power. We won the governor's office. We won the Secretary of State's office. We won the Attorney General's office and a number of offices underneath that. In addition to that, we had 2 bills, 2 proposals, Proposal 2 and Proposal 3. One dealt with the redrawing of the congressional lines so that you could not pack, stack, rack congressional districts in your favor, which means that even when you outvote the other folk, they still wind up winning because of the way they have constructed the congressional lines. We won that. We won it overwhelmingly. Everybody in Michigan wanted that to the degree that we need to move away from that. And we also won the greater access to the voting booth. In other words, we won the proposal which promotes the vote, which gives us greater access to the voting booth. You can vote early registration, even up until and including the day of voter registration. We passed those initiatives. Now the Republicans are a sense of anger, are a sense of trying to put themselves up in preparation for 2020, trying to reduce, trying to retract, trying to subtract, to eliminate the voting access and possibilities of people are maintaining their power and come with all these bogus proposals, these bogus bills in their haste to reduce the power and the impact of the incoming administration. It is the greatest heist. It is the greatest theft of political processes since let me get that right, since Jesse James and his brother Frank James were robbing trains in the Missouri territories. It is a theft of the highest order, and we cannot abide that.
Well, and again, to look at this, I mean, I understand, first of all, we understand politics. And so what they're trying to do by tying the hands of the new Democrat governor, Attorney General, and Secretary of State. But those voter initiatives were not Democratic voter initiatives. Those were voter initiatives voted on by Democrats, Republicans, and independents. That is the will of the people.
All of it is the will of the people. Roland, you're talking like you make sense, like this is based upon a pragmatism, that this is based upon reality. You just talked about comedy with Kevin Hart and the situation he's in. Well, unfortunately, this ain't comedy. This is tragedy. This is a result of people plotting and strategizing, not only in Michigan, but in Wisconsin. They're doing the same thing. In North Carolina, 2 years ago, for the same reasons that we are objecting to this now, the federal courts have reversed and said what they did in North Carolina was unconstitutional. Yes, Republicans voted for Proposal 2 and Proposal 3. Independents voted for it. Democrats voted for it. Everybody voted for it who supported those proposals. Now, these rogue Republicans, and that's precisely what they are rogue Republicans who, if you really are talking about and concerned about voter fraud, this is Democratic fraud. They're using the guise of their majority in the House and in the Senate in Michigan to pass laws that are against the will of the people. I don't hear President Trump talking about we need a voter integrity commission. I don't see Chris Kobach leading the charge to say we need to come in Michigan and in Wisconsin and in North Carolina and other places to correct the wrongs that have been made. This is a short-term gain, but it's going to cause long-term pain. We must not, as a voting electorate, step back. We must step up. This is the kind of mess, Roland, and you know it. This is the kind of stuff that discourages people from voting. This is the kind of stuff that says, my vote doesn't matter. Why should I go to the voting booth? Why should I do what Reverend Anthony is suggesting to take my soul to the poll? Because they're ruining the spirit in my soul. I'm simply saying that we cannot abide this. We are winning, y'all. If we were not winning, they would not be scheming and stealing and perpetrating these frauds upon the people. We are right at the edge of turning the corner in a whole lot of places in our country. We turned it in Michigan. We turned it in Georgia and in Florida. We won those elections, Roland. You know it as well as I do. They stole those elections. Ain't nobody talking about let's send the commission down there. We ain't heard Trump say nothing. I hear the sound of crickets. I don't hear nobody saying anything about the real fraud, the real deceit, the real thievery that's going on in our nation. If you really want to do something for democracy, then let the will of the people prevail. You might get over today, but tomorrow we coming right at you.
Last question. The governor, Rick Snyder, he could veto these bills or he could sign them. He has 14 days to review them. I'm looking at the Detroit News, and he said what took place. This is the will of he said largely they've set their own course, talking about the Republican-led legislature. And he said, I'm waiting to see what comes to my desk, and I'll review it in a thoughtful fashion. I'm going to look at it from what I believe is the best public policy answer for the state of Michigan, just like I have for 8 years. So is it time now? Is it your plan to put pressure on the governor to veto these bills that are passed?
Absolutely, Roland. Not only to veto them if they get to them, but to not sign the bills. It's legacy time. Rick Snyder is on the way out. He carries with him the legacy of Flint, Michigan, who still and cannot get the kind of clean water and new pipes that they deserve. One of the communities in America that is still suffering after 2 to 3 years from poisoned water. You don't want to go out that way. Don't go out having turned the page on democracy by allowing this hypocrisy to prevail. We're asking the governor and calling upon him to do the right thing. He knows that within his own heart and within his scope of political acumen that this is wrong. This is a tragedy of the highest order. You remember, Roland, that when Nancy Reagan, First Lady under Ronald Reagan, was serving, she waged a campaign. It was doing what they call the war on drugs. Well, this is a war on democracy. And what did Nancy Reagan say when they were talking about how to defeat this? She said to young people all over the country, just say no. Well, Rick Snyder, Governor Snyder, when it comes to your desk, just say no. This won't go, and go out in a bang. Don't go out in a boom, to the degree that you did not exercise the right option and do the right thing. We must not be silent. We don't plan to be silent. We must keep the pressure on. Dr. King said it well. The time is always right to do what is right. Now's the time to do the right thing and vote no, and don't sign these deceitful, treacherous, fraudulent bills under the guise of expanding democracy when you're really lifting up hypocrisy.
Reverend Wendell Anthony, of course, President, Detroit NAACP. I really, really need you, Reverend, to come out of your shell.
Roland, I'm going to do the best I can. You know, I'm such a shy guy, and I force myself. But whenever I see you, I just get so inspired that I can't help myself.
I appreciate it, Reverend Anthony. Thanks a bunch.
All right, Doc. Take care.
All right, thanks a lot. All right, folks, let's go to the issue of the criminal justice reform bill that is in the United States Senate. It looks like Mitch McConnell, majority leader, is doing everything he can to kill this. Of course, it was passed in the House. If the Senate passes it, Trump has said he will sign it. Earlier today, South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham tweeted this morning. Just talked with President Donald Trump. He strongly believes criminal justice reform bill must pass now. He also indicated he supports putting criminal justice reform bill on year-end spending bill, which must include more wall funding. So now criminal justice reform is being held hostage to the wall. Here's the thing, though, folks, that we have to actually deal with when you talk about this particular bill that we have to address, and that is the votes are there. You have Senator Tom Cotton, who has replaced Jeff Sessions as the biggest person who wants more people to be in prison. You have Republicans who want to pass this. Senator Mike Lee has gotten into Twitter fights with Senator Tom Cotton on this very issue. Then you have this Sheriff's Association that Tom Cotton has gotten them to oppose the bill, but you've got other police organizations that support the First Step Act. Lauren, I want to go to you. Here's what you have here. I think you have Senator Mitch McConnell, who does not like this bill, who wants to kill this bill. And what Mitch McConnell is doing, he could easily call, he says there's no time on our calendar. How long does it take to actually call a bill up? He, I think, is desperately trying to run the clock out so it doesn't get voted on, knowing full well when the Democrats come back controlling the House, they're going to pass a completely different bill.
Yeah, the thing that's so odd to figure out about some Republicans, because it's not the majority in this case, not even close, is, you know, you have to ask, why is Mitch McConnell here? You know, why is he in public life? I mean, I can't figure that out because there is no there. He doesn't stand for anything except sort of cutting taxes for rich people, and then that's about it. And I guess following what Donald Trump does. But unfortunately, and I think, you know, Paul Ryan was right about this a few years ago when he said it. I mean, the Republican Party at some point does have to be the party of ideas and doing something and not just criticizing Barack Obama and coming up with, you know, negative things to say about Hillary Clinton. And unfortunately, their leadership has sort of lost that. And I think certainly in the case of Mitch McConnell, that's happened. But if you notice, and this is what's so odd about this particular situation, the president, Chuck Grassley, Mike Lee, a lot of other Republicans, I would say the majority of Republicans in the Senate, want to vote for something. They want at least for there to be a vote, you know. And now, you know, in a complete perversion of our democracy, it's like it's so difficult now to get a vote to the floor on anything. And unfortunately, this problem has been bipartisan. We did see this with Harry Reid, same thing. Everybody's afraid to take a vote because everybody's afraid it's going to come up. And this is connected to the power of our technology and communications completely changing the last 20 years. Everybody is afraid to take a vote, be on the record for something, and then have it come up in an election. So everything is just driving that. And I guess that's what McConnell's doing. He never articulates exactly what he's doing, so I'm guessing here. But this is a strange situation because you do have a Republican president, a Republican Senate, Republican House. The bill is passed the House, bipartisan fashion, and you still can't get a vote in the majority Republican Senate. I mean, like, how does that make sense? Wow. On justice reform that was crafted primarily by Republicans.
Yeah.
Malik, when Mitch McConnell got Donald Trump to push this bill to after the election, I said that was the death knell. Supporters of this bill called me, no Roland, no trust me, Trump supports this, he's going to get full force behind it. I said, don't do it. If you do play that game with Mitch McConnell, you are going to get screwed. And that's exactly what has happened. The election was November 6th. Yeah. Today is what? December 7th?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, this is another one of those issues where Republicans make it hard for him. You know, I agree with Lauren. This is, you know, not all Republicans take the same position as McConnell here. I don't know what happened with the bill after it passed the House, because if we remember, there were only 2 Republicans who voted against it out of the House. So I don't know what happened between the House's version and the Senate versions, but I'm certain.
No, here's what happened. What happened was very simple. Tom Cotton felt and there were too many loopholes. They made up some BS.
Right.
They got this one sheriff's organization to oppose it, and they're saying CC, but here you got one sheriff's organization opposing it, but you've got numerous law enforcement groups supporting it.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is Tom Cotton, and it happens in our politics, unfortunately, a lot. There were a lot of things I believe Senator Cotton miscommunicated or misunderstood about the actual bill. A lot of things that he said, would not happen. And so what that has done is created an environment in the Republican Party that, it must be something there. If Tom Cotton said it, it must be something there. But I'm just going to speak as a black Republican sitting here on the show. These are instances where you guys make it hard for us to go out and push Republican policies, bring more people into the party. You're going to have a win on something. And if the president, if the president is behind this, I just don't. To me, there is no excuse for what's happening now.
Cleo, you probably have 40+ Democrats who would vote for this. You've got, no doubt in my mind, at least 30 Republicans who will vote for this. The votes are there. I don't know what the hell Mitch McConnell is sort of like he wants there to be a majority of the votes on the Republican side. The votes are there. He wants to hold this up and then probably, there you go, let's blame the Democrats.
Well, I must admit to all y'all, I don't know all the details about this that you're all talking about. I don't know the details of this scenario that you've asked everyone about, but I do believe that from what I see, the Republicans aim to win, and sometimes their attempts to win defy logic and defy what we would materially think is a good idea, but often they win recently. And I think that we want these people like McConnell to do the right thing, but I think he's trying to manipulate. And from his perspective, his manipulation is going to have some success. We will see.
I mean, the thing is, though, it would be nice if there was a journalist that actually asked Tom Cotton, what are you here for? What did you run for office for?
Right.
What do you believe in? What policies do you actually want to push? Because it would seem to me he believes in absolutely nothing and in doing nothing, and so just sort of being a dead ender. And frankly, I don't think this moment right here, I don't think is about Republicanism or being a Democrat. It's this one individual member who's a pain in the ass. That's what it is. And it's just a weird outlier.
Pain in the ass, though.
Well, here's the deal, Cleo. The next time I send you some damn stories to read, you read it before you come on the show, so you can get caught the hell up what we talking about.
Well,
he's not the only one.
I'm not gonna debate this on the air, but I'm a special guest today, and I came here to be special. So that's all I'll say.
You special, all right, Super Black. You real special. So, folks, we'll keep you abreast of exactly what happens with this and whether or not Republicans are going to have the guts to actually get it passed. If they don't vote on this bill, this just proves Mitch McConnell is a joke, is a failure, and black Republicans should be blasting him at every turn if he simply doesn't do this. All right, folks, it's time to hear a word from one of the folks who are supportive of Roland Martin Unfiltered. With the holidays just around the corner, now is the time to order holiday cards for family and friends. This year, you can create custom holiday photo cards quickly, easily, and affordably at simplytoimpress.com. That's simplytoimpress.com. It is your holiday photo card headquarters with thousands of unique Christmas cards and other designs to choose from. And look, it's very simple. All you got to do is upload your family photos and get them from Facebook or Instagram, personalize the text, and you're done. It's that simple. Simplytoimpress.com prints your cards professionally on your choice of premium card stock in just a few days and rushes them straight to your door. The New York Times Wirecutter named Simply to Impress their favorite custom photo card service. Simply to Impress even offers foil cards and hundreds of great holiday designs for your business as well. Place your order today and to save 30% and get free shipping, just enter the promo code DEAL, that's DEAL, at the checkout. Save big on holiday photo cards today using promo code DEAL at simplytoimpress.com. That's simplytoimpress.com. And one of the reasons we want you to support them is because they are a supporter of Roland Martin Unfiltered. And so when you support them, they continue to support us. All right, folks, if you're of a certain age, you remember civics class. Apparently, Rhode Island doesn't do that anymore. And one young lady thinks that's wrong. She wants to be prepared to vote, to serve on juries, and involve herself in civic affairs. She got a lawyer, and they filed a class action lawsuit against the state of Rhode Island. The suit claims their constitutional right to complete education is being violated. Joining me now is one of the plaintiffs, Alita Cook, as well as her attorney, Michael Rebell. Alita and Michael, how you doing?
Hi, I'm good.
So,
Nice
Alita, when did this start? When did you say, this is crazy? I don't know what the hell they teaching us. I want to do something.
Oh, my video's on.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, Alita, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right. So when did you, like, when was it where you said, this makes no sense to me? I don't know anything about civics in America.
I guess it all started when my friend introduced me up to the case, and I thought about it, and I was like, man, I really didn't really know civics. So I talked with the lawyers that were on the case, and, you know, we talked it over, and I thought about it a little bit more, and I was like, I really have to get on this case.
Now, Alita, when did you finish school?
I'm currently a senior at Providence Career Technical Academy, actually.
Okay. See, that's a high school?
Yes, it's a high school.
And so you're at that high school, and as you think back, when you were in elementary school, middle school, and your other years of high school, what were you taught? Was there anything about government and politics?
Well, when I took a history class in sophomore year, we learned about current events and, you know, the election and what's going on in other parts of the world. Not really too much on how, like, government works and, you know, on how to pay taxes and economy stuff. So I guess, like, I got a little bit of, like, about the war and, like, you know, stuff like that, but not really about how government runs, different forms of government and stuff like that. But yeah.
Mike, I want to go to you with this lawsuit, filing a class action lawsuit. How many folks have you heard from who want to be involved in this?
Well, we've had meetings all over the state of Rhode Island, and I'd say we've heard from hundreds of people who are really concerned about this. And part of the history and part of the reason we went to Rhode Island is they've tried twice to bring cases in the state Supreme Court complaining about the education system there, huge inequities, especially in schools with high minority and ELL populations. And the legislature's been totally unresponsive. The state Supreme Court was unresponsive. So that's why we started thinking about a federal case. And I've also been looking at this issue from a national perspective. And Rhode Island seemed a good place to bring a test. And then when we went there, people like Alita and many of her colleagues were very receptive. They were saying that, you know, she just put it, they take American history. There's no required civics course in Rhode Island, by the way. And they learn about the wars. And one of the other students said, I know what manifest destiny is from the 19th century. It's got no relationship to my life. They didn't tell me anything about local government, that we could make a difference. You know, we could vote on things that would really matter. We almost gave them a civics lesson in talking about this case. So I think some of these students like Alita have really gotten into it. And she's also quite articulate in saying that she's about to graduate, but she's really doing this for her younger brothers and sisters. And I just think that's great.
Michael, have you seen a similar suit like this anywhere in the country, and has it been successful?
Well, as a matter of fact, you were just talking to folks in Detroit. One of my colleagues, who also is very much involved in education reform, which I've been my whole career, he brought a case in Detroit where the situation, I hate to say this because things are pretty bad in Rhode Island, but it seems to be even worse in Detroit. They've got powerful evidence that the Detroit public schools are basically dysfunctional, that most kids graduate there functionally illiterate. So they brought a federal case, and both of us are relying on Supreme Court precedent from 1973 that said there may be a constitutional right to an adequate education, the kind of education you need to exercise your fundamental rights as a citizen. So that's what we're doing. The Supreme Court left that open. They said there may be a right like that. They didn't deal with it in that 73 case, and they said we may look at this in the future. So given everything that's happening in our country, I think the time is now to say that we can't depend on our politicians. We can't depend on Mitch McConnell and his ilk, the kinds of things you were talking about a few weeks ago. We got to look to our future generation. We got to look to the young people. And if they're going to get involved and take over things, we have some hope for the future. But what they've got to learn is how to have conversations, rational conversations, respectfully with people with different views. They've got to learn how to get accurate information from the internet. They've got to learn how to use social media in a positive way to have the kinds of discussions you're having tonight and not rant and rave. But those kinds of things are not what they emphasize in the schools.
Right.
So we're looking for a robust definition of the skills you need for citizenship. You need deep knowledge of history and economics. You need critical analytic ability. You need experiences like school government, like visiting local city councils, like getting involved in extracurricular activities where you interact with people from diverse backgrounds. You need to learn democratic values, rule of law and all. So that's
Lita,
what we're looking for the courts to say is every kid's right to really learn this stuff. The Detroit case, they're emphasizing the importance of literacy, and certainly you can't stress that enough. But I take a little issue there because we get one shot possibly at the U.S. Supreme Court.
Right.
And if they're going to decide that education for citizenship means sixth grade literacy, well, it's better than nothing. And it may help a lot of kids in Detroit, unfortunately, if they're not even getting that. But on the national scale, we want education to be especially as you will in the high poverty, low income areas where kids like Alita are not getting a fair shake. Give them the kind of we're talking about is going to take
let me ask you this question here. Michael, hold on 1 second. Lita, I got to ask you this here in the final question for you. Your classmates, what are they saying? Are they saying, what are you doing involved in a lawsuit, or do they want to join you?
Well, my classmates, my people in my school are really supportive about me doing this case. They think like, they heard me talk about marches and protests and activism work before, but I guess seeing me like in the New York Times and actually like seeing me on, like through social media and hearing like about this case, they've been really supportive and like really got my back on this one, like saying like, this case can really, pass, like I can really win this case. So I've been getting a lot of positive and feedback from this, and I'm extremely grateful for all the like people who have my back on this, my friends and family, and just like people who have reached out to me on this case. Even though I didn't think I will become quote unquote famous for this, but I'm just extremely humbled and blessed to get opportunity to speak my mind on this case.
Well, we certainly appreciate you. We certainly appreciate you doing it. Michael, we thank you for being involved in this case as well. We'll be following it to its conclusion. But Lita and Michael, thank you so very much for joining us. Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Thank you for having me.
All right, folks. Yesterday, we told you about Tyler Perry's gift to folks in Atlanta with merchandise on layaway. Today, we found out the size of the gift. It totaled $434,000. Man, Medea hooked up y'all Christmas. And so way to go to the folks who had layaway at 2 Walmarts there in Atlanta. Folks, the Grammy Awards came out today. The nominations include some great musicians. And so leading is Kendrick Lamar with a total of 8 nominations, including Best Rap Performance, Best Rap Song, and Record of the Year. Right behind Kendrick is Drake with 7 nominations, including Record of the Year and Album of the Year. Next up, of course, is producer Boy Wonder with 6 nominations, including Producer of the Year and Record of the Year. Cardi B, 5 nominations, including Record of the Year and Album of the Year. Also with 5 nominations is Childish Gambino, including Record of the Year and Best R&B Song. Also Her, including Best New Artist and Best R&B Song. SZA rolling in with 4 nominations, including Best Rap Song Performance and Record of the Year. Toni Braxton has 3 nominations, including Best R&B Song and Best R&B Album. Tied with Toni are the Carters with 3 nominations, including Best Urban Contemporary Album and Best R&B Performance. My girl Layla Hathaway has 3 nominations, including Best R&B Album and Best R&B Performance. And so congratulations to all of them. And also so many other people actually got nominated as well. And I'm going to, so I got a text earlier, gospel artist Brian Courtney Wilson also picked up, I believe, I'm looking for his text, 2 Grammy nominations as well for Best Album and Song Performance as well. And so if you go to the Grammy website, you can check that out. All right, folks. Ruth Carter, she's being nominated for 2 Academy Awards for costume design, and is likely to get a 3rd nod this year for Black Panther. And so we recently caught up with her at this year's Essence Festival in New Orleans. Before I roll that, I want to thank Cleo, Lauren, as well as Malik for being on our panel today. And so I'm going to go ahead. So we're going to play the Ruth Carter interview. Then I got to run out. I'm in New York City because, of course, my girl Kerry Washington is in the Broadway play American Boy. She's been American Son. I'm sorry. She's been hitting me up for the last 3 months, saying, "Look, I got to come to New York to check this thing out." My understanding, she gives a major performance in this. It's also directed by Kenny Leon, and so I'm actually headed there. And so the play starts in 51 minutes, so I've got to run out and go to that. And so we appreciate all of you for watching us. And so here's our conversation with the great Ruth Carter. Folks, we're here at Essence Festival 2018 with Ruth Carter, of course, and everybody keeps saying Ruth Carter, Black Panther, but she's done a hell of a lot more movies than that. How many movies have you done in terms of costume?
Oh, I don't think I've counted lately, but I think it's over 35.
Right. So, I mean, and I say that because you're not new to this. You know, people all of a sudden like, oh, my God, because of Black Panther. No, you've been in this game.
Yeah, I've been in this game for sure. Of 35 years, Malcolm X, 2 nominations, Amistad, Tina Turner, What's Love Got to Do with It? I've been doing this a long. I love what I do, so it doesn't feel like work. And then I looked up one day, and it was 35 years later. So what can I tell you?
Are you amazed, though, how many people, again, because of the success of Black Panther, not only are they interested in the various African fashion elements, but also they now realize there's another aspect of Hollywood filmmaking that's not just a director or the folks who are in front of the camera.
Yeah, it's really nice that the costume in Black Panther kind of brought costume design to light. And I have been designing for superheroes for a long time. Malcolm X was a superhero. Tina Turner was a superhero. But the global impact that the Black Panther did, you know, it made $1.4 billion. And it touched a lot of people. So, you know, to have done like the life's work and really giving the Black Panther your all really is heartfelt to see all the people that have embraced it.
You and I, we've talked several times about the movie itself. You've had so many other interviews. Have you considered, or if you've already done it, really putting something together? I mean, the amount of research that you had to go through it, where people really need to understand all of that, and then where certain things came from, and it wasn't just from this particular African nation. Anything along those lines that's sort of a guide, a how-to, or just because it's an interesting backstory. How certain pieces got on screen.
Yeah, well, I do have an exhibition of my work that I have mounted, and it's going to launch in Pittsburgh in August. And what that is, it's actually a walk through history. It's a walk through film history. It's a walk through my design process. And actually, you know, the Black Panther kind of seals the circle. You know, we start with roots and Amistad, and we have the American experience. But actually, the Black Panther gives us like a backstory that goes beyond slavery. So it's a really exciting exhibition that I'm putting together, and I think that's the start of what you're talking about. You know, what is it that you do, and how do I do it? I know those questions are out there, so I'm just going to step my way through it. I'm still a costume designer, so that's like a whole nother, you know, ball of wax there.
Yeah, but the reality is, even though costume design, you also have to be a major historian and researcher to do what you do as well.
Yeah, I love the research. I love looking at the work of James Evangersy, Gordon Parks. You know, I have an extensive library at home. You know, now with the internet, I do a lot of research online. It's just kind of like another part of the passion. You have to have a passion for people and understand the psychology of what they wore in order to actually dress a character. We're character builders. We're storytellers as opposed to fashion designers.
And just so y'all know, trust me, I went to communications high school where we were taught, matter of fact, anytime we watched a movie, we had to watch the movie to the end of the credits.
Oh.
Our instructor said, no, you need to know who also made the film. And so, and I was in high school, so even what happens now, I might see a film and I might go, oh, Terry Shropshire was the editor. Oh, Ruth was doing our costume design because we've had to do it. And so it forces you to realize that there's more to it than just, again, the typical folks we know about.
And listen, I sat in the movie theater before I became a costume designer. When I heard about this profession and I read the credits, there were so many people in the credits. I said to myself, there is a place for me in the entertainment industry. True story.
So I got to say this as well. So when you talk about now because of the success of this movie, so this actually happened. So I'm watching the movie and I see this outfit. It probably was on the screen for like 10 seconds. And I was like, Ruth, I need to see that actual outfit. All I said was just the back. It was just the back, and it was on for that long. Yeah. But I said, okay, that's fire.
Yeah, and then I sent you a text of a picture of it, yep. And you were like, that's the one. So, yeah, that was the special time when T'Challa was taking the throne. And, you know, Kente is worn primarily for special occasions. So we lined his full-length vest with Kente.
Oh, it's gorgeous. And of course, the brother who actually designed it, you sent me his information, and so we're chatting. So y'all gonna see that. Yes. You're gonna see me wearing it.
Yes, he made it. I designed it.
See, there we go. Cool. All right, that's fine. I give credit.
Yeah, no, Carl in Atlanta. Yeah, he's your go-to guy.
All right, then. It was always good to see you. And what's the next movie? What are you working on?
I'm doing Dolomite, the Rudy Ray Moore story with Eddie Murphy, 1970s.
Lots of polyester.
Yes, it's wonderful. It looks so good.
All right, Ruth, always good to see you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much.